And they're called crossover kids, young people who cross over from the child welfare system straight into the criminal justice system. A new report shows that almost half of all young people in open detention or custody come from the child welfare system. Ontario's child advocate believes group homes are part of the problem. CBC reporter Margo Kelly obtained a copy of this advocate's report. She's been looking into what's going on in Ontario's group homes and joins us now. Margo, good morning.
Good morning, Andy.
So why are so many kids crossing over from child welfare into the criminal justice system? What's going wrong here?
Well, interestingly enough, people familiar with the system say they're not surprised that this is happening. And in these numbers, they say these are troubled kids. They've been abused or witnessed violence, and many have mental health problems. But at the same time, they all agree the situation is unacceptable. The state should be doing a better job of caring for these kids so that they don't end up in jail.
And where do the criminal records come from?
Well, it's often in group homes where kids are first charged by police, not out in the community. And that's the interesting piece about this report. Here's Ontario's child advocate, Judy Finley.
Many young people have told us that they've had no charges when they've come into the child welfare system, no charges at all. And then it's while they're in their stay at a group care facility, when they might behaviorally act out, that charges are laid. And these staff end up getting into power and control struggles with these kids. And these are adolescents, and adolescents are very skilled at power and control dynamics. And so you really need to know how to circumvent that kind of interaction. And you have to be pretty skilled.
What kinds of skills? That's something.
Well, certainly a lot higher than what is out there now. Well, we do see some group homes with some excellent staffing levels, but these workers need to have a lot more experience dealing with these kinds of children with behavioral issues and a lot of mental health issues. The child advocate says staff just call police to solve disputes often because they don't have the skills themselves or the mental health workers to diffuse a situation. In fact, one group home called police over 400 times in 1 year. Now, I talked to two teenagers about what life in group homes is like, and they were in homes in Sudbury and Toronto.
The kids in the group home say, oh, it's just a game, play the staff's game. It's either their way or it's jail.
Do you think group homes are too quick to call in the police?
Yes. My understanding is supposed to be last resort, not first thing. As soon as the kid flips out, they charge him.
What was that like for you?
It was horrible.
Students are on probation. They're set. They love it. Let's say you're supposed to read a book and, you don't feel like reading a book. You feel like watching TV, And if you're not reading that book, they're going to threaten you and say, you better read that book or you're going to go back to jail. If anything, you're going to punish me, make me sit in my room for a half hour or, give me a lecture, but throw me in jail? Come on,
They sound so frustrated. What's the solution?
Well, the child advocate says certainly standards of care at group homes need to be much higher. She'd like to see a mental health worker attached to each group home. This is a sector, Andy, that's now costing taxpayers $250 million a year, most of it going to privately run homes. Yet until recently, there were only licensing requirements and few, if any, standards of care, even though there have been complaints for decades about this sector. Now, the advocate also wants the province to monitor calls that group homes make to police and the kind of charges that result. She wants more programming for kids, so that they're not often at loose ends. This was something that came up repeatedly.
What's Queen's Park got to say about all this?
Well, the Child and Youth Services Minister, Marianne Chambers, agrees that the current situation is unacceptable, but she's quick to add that there are already changes underway. You may remember, Andy, the auditor's report on the Children's Aid last year. It was critical of the lack of controls on spending, and so Chambers recently set up an accountability office, which she says will ensure group homes are more accountable. And she's also unveiled an action plan to improve standards in group homes and the training of ministry staff who license them. Now, these may take a while to implement. We don't really know the speed with which this will happen. And there's also another important change. The government has passed legislation to make it easier for relatives or others to adopt kids so they won't have to go into the care of the Children's Aid and into foster or group homes in the first place.
And have we heard from the group homes themselves?
Well, they say that the reality is that some of these kids are just too difficult, too traumatized this for relatives to handle, and there's still going to be a role for group homes. I spoke with a group home operator, Harold Cleary. He's a former social worker who operates homes for 70 children in Toronto and Durham region, and he's on the board of a provincial group home association. I visited one of his homes in a lovely residential neighborhood in Scarborough, extremely well run, clean, great staff. It's an example of how homes should be run, Andy, but he agrees there are bad apples in this business.
When you have a home and the walls are punched in, the doors are kicked in, it's dirty, the staff don't care, the kids don't care. It's totally self-defeating. It's warehousing. You're not doing anything else for them other than providing shelter. And for operators to allow that to happen is a real shame. And they need to be held accountable that just isn't happening. You know, I see it as being like a real virus, and it's pretty hard to treat it once that whole mindset happens.
Now, Andy, Cleary and the leading group home operators like the Child Advocate want to see higher standards in Ontario. But interestingly enough, he is also pushing for something else, Harold Cleary. He says it's time we started measuring how kids in the care of the Children's Aid are doing. He calls that one of the greatest ironies of our system, that we spend all this money, but we don't measure in a clinical way the success rate. These kids get spit out of the system, usually with little or no help. We haven't a clue how they end up doing. What is their educational level, employment situation, their mental health status, or criminal status? You know, we have hospitals measuring patient outcomes, schools are measuring how well students are doing, and the child welfare system should be doing the same thing. So I think this word accountability is something we're going to start hearing more and more when it comes to Children's Aid.
Margo, thank you.
You're welcome.
Margo Kelly. Our VoxBox number is 416-205-5807. Interesting, I noticed that Annie is opening up in town tonight, and I think about that song, It's a Hard Knock Life, which of course is a cheerful tune, amusingly sung, but when you just take that phrase away from the song, you realize how true that is for these kids. It is a hard knock life. 416-205-5807 if you know something about that life, maybe even have survived it.